This will be number 15 in the 6-cycle oddball series. We're going to make the exhaust valve push rod, this part, and there it is there with its roller. And I make this a little different than they show in the print, so if you follow along, you'll be able to do it, probably remember it pretty easily. There's not a lot of changes, but just makes it easier to make. The way we start off is with the piece, and it has to fit in the slots that you made there. Now, if you didn't make the exact width slots, you're going to make this just to fit it, so it slides in there nicely. And I usually round the end, because if you put a square end in there and you jam it in, it'll stick a little bit. But with the round ends, it won't. But it does. That's not necessary, but you want it to break the corners off it anyway. So that's the part I'm starting with. So the first thing we do is just put some bluing on that so we can lay it out. It's a pretty simple layout. Just has to be on one side. Okay, the first thing we're going to lay out on this is the little tongue. And if you take the width of the tongue, which is 218, and the full width of this piece is 590, that could vary depending on what you've done, but I'm going to just mark out this tongue. So the distance between here and here, if you take 590 and subtract 218 and divide by 2, you end up with 186. So I'm going to mark those two lines. 186. One there, flip it over and do the other one. Okay, and now for this curve here, we've got to go back 562. So I'm going to put a line at 562. Now I can mill right back to that line with the, I think a 3/8, yeah, 3/8 radius. That would be a 3/4 inch end mill. No, 3/16. It's 3/8 end mill. So mill back to the line. Now I'll lay out the rest of it. Now I'm going to set up a stop. Now what I'm going to do is just mill into that line by eye. There's the two sides, and now we're going to mill some off the top. So the next feature I'm going to do is this little part here, and I got to leave 1/8, so I got to take it out and measure it, and then I'm just going to use a end mill with a rounded corner on it and do that. So it says to leave that about an 1/8 inch thick. So what I want to do is take off about 60 thousandths here. There's what we have so far. Now I'm going to take and silver braze a little block on the end of here. And what I've done is save myself a lot of machining. I'd have to machine all this off and leave the square. I'm just going to silver braze a little block on the end of it. I'm just going to use a piece of 1/4 inch square 12L14 for the little block with the thread in it. So I'm going to put a little flux on there. And then I'm going to put the block on there, this way, actually. And I got to hold it on there, so I made up this little clamp to hold that without getting in the way. That's better. Now, as you can see, that holds it flat, and it can't move away because it's got a little pressure on it. Now I'm going to cut a piece of silver. And this is regular silver solder. I'm going to flatten it with a hammer. because one of my subscribers in Austria suggested this, and he does it all the time, and because it's flat it doesn't roll off. It just takes a tiny bit. That's all I'm using, that little flat piece. I'm going to put that right up against on this flux. And when I heat that up, that'll draw that right in there. So I don't want to put the heat on from this side. I want to put the heat on from this side in the bottom, and that way, when it sucks in, it'll go in the joint. If I heat it from the top, what'll happen is it'll go up on the block, and the silver will be gone. Now, Jim, see if you can come around here and you see that solder went all the way around that joint, if you can find it. Now, if I'd heated it from the top, the silver solder would have jumped up on the block, and most of it would have gone away. But by heating from the bottom, it sucks it in there and makes a good joint. So Jim suggested that we show the clamp. It's just a piece of a coat hanger, and those ends are parallel with each other, so when I put it down on the block, it holds it absolutely square. So you can see how that solder went all the way around and all the way through that joint, and it was just a tiny piece. So now I got it back in the middle, and what I'm going to do is square off the two sides and square off the front with this 3/8 end mill. The next thing we're going to do is drill and tap that hole, and it says 9/64, but I've found from experience that for some reason it doesn't seem to come out quite right. It's always a little off center. So I'm going to put this in the engine itself and put the head on it and see if it lines up. I've screwed this all together, and this one looks about right. The trouble I've had in the past is the bolt would be too far in, but this looks like it's just about right. That's the center of it right there. I will measure that. So that looks like it's just about right on this one. 140 from here to where it is, 140 thousandths. So I'm going to use this to mark it. I'm going to go up 100 and 10, 20, 30, 40 right there. Well, that lines up pretty much with the mark I put on there from the other side. So that's just about right on. Here again, this isn't really critical. So what I'm going to do is take this and then prick punch it and drill it in the drill press. I'm not going to use the miller. Back in the same hole and punch it. So I'm going to spot drill that and then drill it for a 540 thread. Yeah, it's going to go right through there. No problem. I'm just going to take this over the sander and round it off a little bit and take the burrs off of it. So the next thing we're going to do is drill this hole for the roller. And that's in 109, and I was just checking the dimension here to make sure. I got to go in a little bit further because this is a little long. but it won't matter as long as that hole is the right distance from here. And it has to be centered this way. So I've got 90, 590, that's 5 less than 300. 295 is right there. And now we're going to do this on the drill press too, because like I said, this isn't critical. I'm just going to prick punch that and drill it. The plan calls for a 440 tapped hole there, but I'm using a 632, and the reason is that I'm going to use a flathead Allen screw to bolt that together. What they show on this roller is a special shoulder bolt, and it's very tough to make a shoulder bolt, so I just do it with a little collar and a bolt in it, and I use a flathead screw so it doesn't protrude out. And I'll show you that when I finish and I can explain it better. That's a number 35 for the tap, and I drilled it through, and now I'm going to tap it. Pretty tough. Just to finish that with a tap handle. I had to use a tap handle to finish that. This chuck is really good for small holes, but when you get up to a number 6, it will slip. So I leave the chuck on there because on these small taps, if it slips a little, it's okay because it saves you from breaking taps. And if I have to, I'd go to a handle. But normally, up to a 440, I don't have to use anything. I can just get enough grip with this chuck. But it isn't the ideal thing. So what I'm going to make is a little flange bushing, and the flange bushing will be countersunk for a 632 bolt, a flathead bolt, and that's actually an Allen screw. And the reason I do this is because I can buy those at the local hardware store, and I can buy one. If I wanted to use a 540 or a 440, I'd have to buy a whole box. So the hole has to be a clearance hole for this 632 tap, which is probably 150 thousandths would be plenty. So I'm going to go with a number 24 drill. I think that'll be enough clearance. We'll test it afterwards. You have to go in there about a ½ inch or less, actually. Let's see if that's going to pass in there all right. Yep, that's plenty loose. That's good. That gives it about 5 thousandths clearance. Okay, so what I'm going to make is a bushing with an outside diameter that's thick enough so that when I put that screw in there, it'll hold the piece in place while the valve is being pushed in and out. So I'm probably going to leave not almost a 1/16 of an inch all the way around it, so it'll be fairly solid. And then the roller will be made to fit whatever dimension it is. So I've got to go in here. I got to go in here 218 plus a little clearance, so it's a little bit loose. Yeah, it's only about 30 thousandths, so a 32nd of an inch. So now what I'm going to do is leave the head on it and part it off, probably less than a 1/16 thick. So I'm going to leave about a 1/16 of an inch for a head, which is probably 50 thousandths, so 60 thousandths. Yeah, 60 thousandths should be plenty. About there. So there's the bushing. Now I'm going to make the roller that'll fit over this and spin free. So the roller diameter is 1/2 inch, so I got some nice drill rod here. I'm going to use that. So the first thing I got to do is get the hole through it that bushing will fit into. Spotting drill. We'll go with a 1/8 inch drill for a pilot hole. Go in there with a number 3 drill. That should be just undersized, hopefully. Well, that fits in there pretty good. I have a number 3 reamer, but I don't think that this is gonna, I think the drill drilled a little oversized, so. I want that to be a little loose, and it isn't quite loose. So the only thing I can do is run a boring bar in there and just touch it. Yeah, that's nice and loose now. 1/16 inch shoulder, and that's just a spacer to keep it away from the side of the engine. So we're going to set this up and do a 1/16, and it says it's approximately, so that's not a problem. Set my stop. Just part that roller off and we'll be finished with it. I got to get the width of the roller here. 1/16 for the width of the cutter. And the roller, it says it's 218, and if I made this right, this should be a little over 218. It is, it's 225. So we're going to go 218. And part that off. Okay, now I'm going to round the edges just a little bit to take the edges off. There's the roller. I'll put it together with the bushing and see how it works. Got to go a little deeper than that, I think. Not much, just a tiny bit. That should do it. Okay, now if we did everything right, that roller will turn freely. And it does. So that's the end of 6-cycle oddball number 15 video. And the roller works really good. And I'm going to take this out and clean it all up and polish it. and make it look like I made it on purpose. And all I need to do is put a number 540 bolt in here, and that's what hits the end of the valve. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to make the gear and the cam, actually both gears and the cam, and I'm going to use a Spindex instead of a dividing head. And these work pretty good, and they're pretty reasonably priced, so anybody can afford one. And it's perfect for gears of even numbers. This is a 60 and a 20 tooth gear, so that works out with 360. It has to be divisible by 360 to make the gear. So, and this does that. So I'll show you how it's done in the next video. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.